1-star reviews on Goodreads are completely unhinged, but what's even worse are the 1-star reviews that people leave on books that went viral on TikTok. Half of the time, I don't know if these are actually valid points or if they're just coming out of pure hatred. So that's why today, I'm going to be reading 3 books that went completely viral on TikTok to see if they are fine pieces of literature or if they blew up for genuinely no reason. Here are the rules for this challenge. Rule number 1, I must read 1-star reviews from each book. Rule number 2, I must make a consensus of all of the 1-star reviews and what they are saying and put them into little objectives. Rule number 3, if I find out all of the objectives and the 1-star reviews are in fact true, I must DNF the book. Alright guys, first up we have The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Now, I don't actually know much about this book. I do know that it did go extremely viral on TikTok, but let's see what the reviews have to say about this book. KDT said, pretentious, boring drivel, word salad, nothing made sense. So many words, nothing happened. An author desperate to hear their own thoughts. I'm sorry, Katie, did you just write a poem? Did you just drop a poem on us? This is supposed to be a review, not a haiku. Okay, so basically throughout this poem, Katie is describing that the book was boring, that there were so many words, but it seemed like she couldn't understand what the book was talking about. So that is one objective that I'm going to be looking for throughout reading this book. Joanna said, this felt so slow, I gave up. I don't know about you guys, but I hate a really slow book, especially when the book is extremely long in pages. But the Atlas 6 looks moderately long, but hey, if Joanna is right and this book is like really slow pace, I will be pretty mad, okay? Alice said, I'm convinced the author just tried to take basic words, then Googled the word synonym behind it and used the most complicated unknown word there is and decided to just make that their writing style. Okay, so the author basically uses confusing words in the place of the most basic word ever. This is like if you went up to somebody and said, oh yeah, you're prestigious. Okay, so basically what I'm looking for is just a bunch of word slop. The slowest pacing ever, and the author using the most complicated words ever on earth. Those are 3 crazy objectives, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to hit all of these, but guys, I'm going to start reading the Atlas 6 tonight, and we're going to take a look and see. Just finished reading chapter 1 of the Atlas 6. I don't know if I'm really getting the idea of word slop yet, but hey, I am 1 chapter in. I am pretty intrigued so far, so we're gonna see how the rest of the book goes. But I am kind of, it's a slow burn. I'm getting into it slowly. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. Y'all, believe me when I say that I am shocked out of my mind about the reviews for this book, okay? You're probably like, oh, Zach, why did you only have 1 clip of you reading? Because I thought it was gonna take me longer. It took me 2 days. I read this entire book in 2 nights. That first clip was the first night, and then the second night, I finished it. What the heck, guys? Which is just astonishing to me because the reviews are all about, this felt so slow, I gave up. Guys, I'm sorry to say this, but those 2 reviews are not true. It's funny that those are the 1-star reviews because actually I have a lot more different gripes with this book than you might think. I ended up not DNFing the Atlas 6 because obviously none of these things were true, but genuinely, I feel like I was on the verge of DNFing it. You see, here's the thing. These 1-star reviews, I can see why some people might find the Atlas 6 to be very slow. One of them being the extensive cast that is in this book. This book is made up of multiple POVs, like just way too many POVs for so many characters that you're just going back and forth between so many characters' POVs, so I feel like it's very easy to get lost if you don't know like what you're reading or what you're reading about. So it's kind of hard. I know for some readers it's very hard to pivot from character to character to character that much, and to be honest, I feel like that just left no room for character development. I didn't really know what these characters' intentions were at the end of the day because I was just going like this so much, and also this felt less and less fantasy the more I went into it. Sure, these characters can do these magical powers, yeah, that's a big part of it, but I feel like I wish the author explored that a little bit more in this novel, which again is extremely extremely hard to do when you have just so many POVs. You're snapping back and forth just like that. I'm surprised this book isn't longer, because it very much could be, just because it feels like so much didn't happen because it was just going from POV to POV to POV. Like, this book is supposed to take place over like a whole year, like a whole school year semester type thing, because in the secret society they're also learning things. But at the end of the day, it felt like everything just happened in a snap because we were just going back and forth so much. So at the end of the day, even though I finished this book, I read it, I understand it, I legitimately cannot remember a single thing that happened in this book. Which is kind of weird. That's not a good thing. So I had to give this book 2 out of 5 stars. There's still a lot of aspects I like about it. For example, the writing style I really liked. I kind of connected with that. But I feel like the opportunities to really show off that style just weren't there, and places for me to connect with the characters and really understand what's all happening is just really hard. But guys, I think it's time to move on to our next book. And please ignore the fact that I look completely toasted right now. I literally look like a marshmallow. Things are getting hot here in Texas. But our next 1-star book we are reading is none other than Lightlark. Now, Lightlark, I am pretty interested to see how this book turns out, because it looks like the internet has a really love-hate relationship with this book. Anytime I go on TikTok, I see so many good reviews about it. But on the other hand, when you go on YouTube, there are literally 7-hour videos about everything wrong with this book. So we're going to read the reviews and see if they are true. All I really know about Lightlark is that it kind of sounds like the plot of Caravel almost. Basically, every 100 years there's this island called Lightlark that appears for only 100 days to host a game of sorts, and it's a fantasy. So we're going to see how Lightlark goes, but first let's read the reviews. Nikki said, "This book triggered my trypophobia with the amount of plot holes it had." Trypophobia. I have no idea how to pronounce that word. Okay, I guess there's a bunch of plot holes so much that it made you have a physical reaction. That is insane. I mean, I've come across plot holes, but the most it's made me do is throw the book across the room, which I guess is a physical reaction, so I understand, Nikki. Hamna said, "This reads like such a joke. They spend the entire book searching for egg yolk. I'm dead serious. Literal egg yolk. I don't know if I should laugh or..." I'm sorry, but if the characters are actually spending a good majority of the book looking for egg yolk, I think I might DNF it right there and then. And RF Gaman said, "Reading this book hurt more than the surgery incisions I am recovering from." I don't even know how you pronounce that word. I'm sorry, I butchered that. So basically what the reviews are saying is that this book has tons of plot holes. The characters look for egg yolk and it's really boring. And this book will hurt more than literal pain, apparently. If I find out all 3 of those things are true, I must DNF the book. And the way this is sounding, I might DNF it anyways, honestly. I guess I'm gonna get started on Lightlark. I'm genuinely really curious to see how this one goes, but let's get to reading. Alright, so I just read the first chapter of Lightlark, and I can't help but feel like this is a middle grade novel for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe it's just these Lightlark curses and powers thing, but I think this is the first time I've seen this in a fantasy novel that is young adult. Like, there's wildlings, there's starlings, there's skylings, there's moonlings, there are sunlings, and there is nightshade. They each have their own curses and powers, and yeah, I feel like they're just species of humans, which is just really interesting. The prologue has a prophecy and everything. This legitimately reads like Wings of Fire if it was humans so far, but that's all I'm getting from the first chapter. Alright guys, I am making some progress on Lightlark, okay, and I have some thoughts I need to get out of my system right now, because oh my gosh, man. I am 200 pages in, so I'm like around halfway through the book right now, okay? And for some reason, I cannot wrap my head around what's happening right now. I don't know what it is. Like, it's like I'm reading the words, but I'm not understanding them at all, which is just not good, okay? Another gripe I'm having with the book right now is that it is the characters. Like, the characters, it's a terrible set of characters. I don't know about you guys, but one thing that is a must need for a really good book is a set of characters that are really relatable. You instantly know their personality, you know how they would act in certain situations, and for some reason, with the cast of characters in this book, I just do not feel that at all. If you were to ask me, like, hey, how would Isla act if she got kidnapped tomorrow? I'd be like, I don't
I don't know. I don't know too much about the main character's personality. I don't know too much about the other people's personalities, except for Grimm, because he's the most obvious personality of them all. He's just dark and seducing. That's just his entire personality. Another thing is that, okay, I know this is marketed as a fast-paced romantasy, but it is way too fast-paced. This is way too fast. I cannot keep up. I cannot process what's happening in this book right now. And honestly, if I were reading this book normally, I would have probably DNF'd it way earlier. Okay, I just do not know what's happening. Let's see if I DNF this book. I'm getting there. I'm getting really close to DNFing this book. I have not had a physical reaction to this book yet, but I might. Okay.
It saddens me to say this, but Lightlark is officially getting a DNF. I know. It's kind of crazy, okay? And this was not a forced DNF. I did not get this DNF because the 1-star reviews are correct, but mainly because I had my own opinions about this book. If you remember correctly, the 3 objectives that I was looking for was plot holes, characters looking for egg yolk, and if the book would give me a physical reaction, like I would do something physical with this book. And I'll just say that I didn't come across those 3 things except for the plot holes one, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The thing is, I feel like I was just reading this with my eyes but not actually understanding what was going on. I could not tell you if I remember the characters were searching for egg yolk. I don't remember what was going on the last time I picked up this book. And that is what saddens me about Lightlark, okay? It is really fast-paced from the start. This is a romantasy. The romance it starts just like that, just from the start of the book. I don't think, and so I would say that there was plot holes, okay? There was just like holes in the whole plot. I guess that's plot holes. Yeah, so there was plot holes. There's a ton of them. I guess that first review was in fact correct. And that seems to be the main criticism with Lightlark. People don't like the plot holes. People think that things just get really confusing really fast, and that's what happened for me. Obviously, I can see the appeal of Lightlark. There's tons of people I would know that would pick this book up and devour it in an instant. For me, it's just not my vibe. I'm a huge fan of insane world building, a great cast of characters, a great plot, and a slow burn romance. This book was just the opposite of it, all of that entirely. And for me personally, I have a very hit or miss relationship with fantasy TikTok books. Another book I had a similar reaction to was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, which I am actually considering picking up again, but I had the same thing with this book, okay? I read the entire thing, I finished it, but I also feel like I did not know what was happening. And for some reason, when I also read Lightlark, it felt like I was reading a book that I had already read. The plot felt super bland. It felt like if Wings of Fire and Caravel had a baby. That's how I would put the plot in my terms, which is probably not even correct, okay? That being said, I give Lightlark 1 star for what I've read so far. It just wasn't my thing, okay? I'm not saying that the book is incredibly bad. I'm just saying it didn't work for me. Yeah, I know a lot of people would devour this up, and obviously people have, or else it wouldn't be a New York Times bestseller. But that being said, we are going on to the final book of this video, the final boss of 1-star TikTok books. And y'all, I'm not even sure if I want to read this book. I don't really want to. But we gotta see if these 1-star reviews are correct. So, for the final book, we are reading It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This by far has probably the most love-hate relationship on TikTok I think I've ever seen. Some people would consider it the most viral book on TikTok, and others would consider it a industry plant, the way they talk about it, okay? They're all like, oh, why did Book Talk make this famous? This is the most horrible, disgusting book ever. And then you could literally scroll, and then somebody will be talking about how this book is an absolute masterpiece. So I'm interested to see what I actually think of this book, if I think it's good or if I think it's just straight up horrific. But first, let's read the 1-star reviews. Christina said, just no. Honestly, I understand the pain here. I rarely write reviews on Goodreads in general, but whenever I do write a review, it's usually many sentences, paragraphs even, elaborating about how good the book I read was. But for me to give a 2-word response, I mean, hey, that's worse than a 1-star, okay? That's sad. This Goodreads user said, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name. This isn't a romance, but half of Book Talk are not ready for that conversation. Wait, so it's not a romance book? Y'all, literally the cover has like pretty pink flowers and the Baba's New font. Like, that's literally the same cover design as Variation by Rebecca Yarros. Like, what is going on here? Romania said, I feel like I read this 10 years ago on Wattpad. The moral of the story, it should have stayed on Wattpad. I feel like the lowest point of criticism that anyone can give on a book is that it feels like they read it on Wattpad. I've seen tons of reviews that are like, oh, this sounds like something that could have been on Wattpad, and it's like, oh, it's on Powerless, oh, it's on The Cruel Prince, and it's also on like Dune for some reason. So honestly, I don't know how to respond to that review. I'm really interested to see, because like this low-key has the plot of a Wattpad novel, I'm not gonna lie. Tanisha said, domestic abuse, not a romance book. 3 exclamation marks. Dang. Okay, I think we can learn by now that the consensus is that it's not a romance book, even though it is very much marketed as. Y'all, I remember walking into a Target and seeing a whole like nail thing for this book, like a nail polish. What? This is not a romance book? Catlin did us a favor here and listed out all of the trigger warnings in this book, and they are all blurred out. I don't know if I should be thankful that they're blurred out. I literally just came across this review on Goodreads and they were just done like that. And y'all, that's a whole paragraph of trigger warnings right there. That a book shouldn't have that many trigger warnings. If this review is correct, the military wishes they had as many triggers as It Ends With Us. So y'all, my objectives, and if I come across all 3 of these objectives, remember, I have to DNF the book straight away. As soon as I come across all 3 of them, I gotta put down the book. What we are looking for are signs that this is not a romance book. In fact, it is about abuse. That it literally reads like a Wattpad novel, and that the trigger warnings are just completely out of hand. Honestly, I'm not too sure about trigger warnings. I don't think it's gonna be that bad, but I'm genuinely curious to see how It Ends With Us goes. And who knows, it may end with me DNFing this book. I'm not gonna lie, but let's read it. Guys, I cannot believe I am saying this, but I DNF'd It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover. Okay. But guys, this wasn't a normal DNF like I did with Lightlark. This was a forced DNF. Okay, all of the 1-star reviews were in fact true about this book. I found all 3 of the objectives to be alright, okay? And guys, I am surprised to find out all 3 of these things are actually correct about the book, because this book was not that bad. It genuinely wasn't. Like, to be honest, it wasn't the most terrible thing I think I've read. It just felt so mediocre. It felt so unoriginal, felt very uninspired, and yes, the writing was very Wattpad. I'm sorry, but when you have a main character called Lily Blossom Bloom, I just can't take you seriously at all. That is the type of character name that you're going to see in a Wattpad novel. And it doesn't help that the other characters' names are Atlas or Ryle, that literally sound like they came out of a novel written by J.R.R. Tolkien. And the author was obviously very self-aware about these names in the book. For example, the main character jokes like, oh yeah, such a stupid name, I'm called Lily Blossom Bloom. I'm just like, you're making it even more aware that that is such a weird name. And also, yes, the main character does open up a flower shop. So, that's awesome. That's great. No, but as soon as you open up the book, it's giving very much romance vibes. You know, the main character finds a romantic interest right at the start of the book. Things are going well, but yes, this is not a romance book. This is very much about abuse, especially when it goes on to the parents in her diary. To the point where it was almost just kind of exhausting to read. It just wasn't fun anymore. I started off kind of lighthearted, but almost as soon as you like dove deeper, it just got so depressing. But at the same time, I could see so many people that would enjoy this type of story, especially 30-year-old mothers. They would eat this stuff up. So that being said, I do think there should have been a trigger warnings list at the beginning of this book. There was just too many stuff. That being said, this is one of the most popular book talk books out there. Do I think it deserves the hype? Absolutely not. This book is incredibly mediocre. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing profound about it. There's not even really anything really profound about the story in general. The main character is actually pretty lovable. I'm not gonna lie. I liked the main character. She had a very nice personality, but it got to the point where I was like, yeah, but like this just sounds like any other romance novel, and then it just takes a complete left turn the other direction. My final rating for It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover is 2.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't get so lost with it like I did with Lightlark, and in fact, it was a pretty simple read, to be honest. It felt like I was reading a Wattpad novel. And of course, there's only one POV. I didn't get so lost in everything and trying to remember all the details like I did with the Atlas 6. That being said, I do think that people take the hate for this book a little bit too far. One of my expectations going into this book is that the writing was just going to be completely terrible. It's not. It's just incredibly mediocre and simple. So guys, as somebody who has read this thing with an open mind, I think that, you know, maybe Colleen Hoover books need to get less hate. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my reaction to all 3 of these 1-star TikTok books. If you want to see me read more 1-star books from different genres, let me know down in the comments. Give a subscribe, because low-key, I kind of want to bring this series back. This was actually just genuinely so much fun. Alright, that's all. Bye.